So today we are going to talk about fundamentals of cybersecurity. Some of you have an idea that what cybersecurity is because you're working on it. Some of you might not be aware about some of the things that we will be speaking. So when we say cybersecurity is an area where organization, people, or anyone who says that we're trying to defend against cyber threats or cyber attacks that are happening. And when we see these tens, it's a huge number. Like recently, you must be hearing about some organization that has hacked, or every other day, I would say that we are hearing it, but it's not the thing. Every day, every minute, some company is getting breached. And when that's happening in every part of the world or every day, there was one research that I was going through where when an organization experiences a breach, it just doesn't happen in first attempt. It takes like a persistent time for a malicious person or a malicious attacker to gain access to the environment. And the fun fact, uh, if a company gets breached once, they actually gets breached twice or thrice. That's like a trend that I've seen, because they leave some traces where people are not able to find, and then or they stay in the organization for months or for years, and that creates a big problem where so much of data from an organization is getting leaked. And let me show you some trends here. Like 90 so this is a research. If you can see on the left hand side, this is a research by Gartner, which is a research firm, which says that 95% of the CIOs expect cybersecurity threats to get worse. Even though we are spending more and more money on cybersecurity, we are hiring the best of people, still we are getting breached. So where is the gap? So sometimes the minutest of things that we miss, those things create a problem. Like recently there was one S3 bucket which was left open, and people were able to actually get access to it. I remember there was one company, I don't want to name that, um, but that company's Bitbucket was left open with the admin credentials, uh, default credentials I should say, and their data was publicly available. Who keeps the default credentials? um, do you keep your password as password or admin or anything which is like easy to remember? Like I don't do it. I have a password which is over 24 characters. I am so paranoid that I have multi-factor authentication enabled. Now all of that is there. We all know that we are using SaaS solutions which are with somebody else. Now it's our responsibility to manage our passwords. Do you ever share your toothbrush with anyone? Just think about it. I don't think so. Like it's like you, I don't want to share my toothbrush with anyone. So passwords are like toothbrushes. When you don't share your toothbrush, why would you share your password with anyone in the world? So similarly, why would you keep it something which can be easily guessable? Like you will keep a passphrase or something which is longer so that you can remember and then you can take it further. Similarly, the ransomwares. Sometimes we click on links, sometimes we download things, and then our system is gone. And we've seen the trend that the cost of cybercrime is going higher every year, every 3 years. And this is the research by Cybersecurity Ventures. And if I look at the statistics in 2019, strange, one second. So if I look at the statistics in 2019, uh, there was a research which came up that, okay, the cybercrime cost in 2015 was 3 trillion. Now it's expected to be 6 trillion by 2021, which is now we are in. And I think it's almost touching that. Especially in the past year, we've seen the huge amount of loss of data, money, and whatnot. And there's something that I feel, or I think everyone feels now, is that oil is not the most valuable thing. It's the data which is the most valuable thing. So if that's the case, and if data is spilled everywhere, who's going to be cleaning it? Who's going to be keeping it safe? Or if it's open to anyone and everyone, anyone can just pick it up and use it. So can you question it? No, you can't. And that's when privacy comes into picture, although cyber cloud security concerns comes into picture. And I was reading one of the Ponemon research where um, the cloud configuration serves as 19%. 19% is like a huge percentage wherein uh, people are leaving all the things open, or people are not sure how to use the cloud. We all are moving to cloud, but the most important aspect is that understanding the cloud. Cloud is one wonderful thing that has been given to all of us, but then if we don't use it right, it can be a big problem for all of us. And that's when we are trying to educate you about the different things that we have with cloud security or with cloud, so that once we know, okay, this is the cloud, then we can use it in the right way. Now let's get deep into like the basics of cybersecurity. Like, why do we even need it? Because think about, you have access to Instagram. Like I have seen, especially the younger generation, they love Instagram, because I also came recently on Instagram, and I could see that what it is and what not. Everyone is a celebrity there. So there is one thing: if you are posting a picture on Instagram and you're not allowed to do it, or Instagram is down, or any website that you use is down, you'll think, okay, it's not available for me, there is some problem going on. Or if you post a picture within your friends, but then it's publicly available, anyone can see in the world, would you like it? I don't know. Like, my account is secure. I don't want to share it with anyone and everyone. I have a close set of people. I would only like to share it with them, because that's what sometimes make me feel good. Yeah, it's only with my few folks. Then comes integrity. I am sending something to Jagrati, and suddenly somebody changes and then send it to Jagrati. Jagrati will be like, okay, why did Vandana send this kind of a thing? Strange. So, cybersecurity actually defends our computers, servers against all these activities. Whenever we need anything, it keeps it available. Second, if there is a confidential details which is supposed to be with me and Jagrati, it will be with us and not with anyone else. And if I am speaking with Jagrati, nobody else will be able to manipulate their information. And that's what makes the CIA triad. Now people have started talking about AA, CIA, and whatnot. So it keeps on getting increased, and these are some just minutest details that we wanted to share with you. And why do hackers hack, or why do people get motivated to get into anyone's network? Now, when I use this word hacker, it's always used in a positive way. Like, we all are hackers, especially if I talk about the cybersecurity people, because we are trying to safeguard our organization. And when we do security testing, we actually act like hackers. So I try and use this word in a positive way. Then for the negative people, it's malicious actors, malicious attackers, and whatnot. Now, first, motivation: they get money. Actually, there have been cases where people actually try to snatch money from someone's account. And I remember that they put a lot of information online, and then people send them money on different platforms, different wallets. So that's a big problem. Then comes revenge. Like, I want to take revenge from someone, and I'm going to get into their account. Like, people when we were or the internet just was getting started, people were saying that, can I get into this person's account? I want to see what they're doing. So that's kind of thing. And or I want to send some email to somebody else. Then case, like, just they are curious and they want to know, or they want to get into some IP thing, wherein there is some patented thing which somebody has secured. There is a project that somebody is working on, and they want to snatch that. Or we have seen that for fame, name, people do it, which is not the case anymore, because bug bounties have come into picture, and people are more moving towards responsible disclosure, where people report and then get paid for that. Now think about, when you are trusting something, or somebody is trusting you, and you're betraying it. Cybersecurity is just that if you try and do it, it stops you there. Somebody has given you their data or their password and you start using it. Is it good? No. Or you have given your password to your best friend and they start using it and posting something. I'll be like, first of all, why would I change my why would I share my password, and then why would I share it? Similarly, if you have a toaster and it start blending your bread or your toast, you'll be like, why did I even buy it? What's happened to it? Similarly, there's a case which I always quoted and I love it. Like there was a chandelier that my brother bought, which revolves, and then there's a sound that comes in. So it works via Bluetooth. So there are a lot of Bluetooth hacks that are there. So I just ran a simple script, and one day we were sitting on a dinner table. So he was only the one who was connected to it and who used to run it, but then I ran that script wherein it should keep spinning. Everyone spooked out at home, like why it happened. And that was a fun fact, that all these internet connected things can be really, really problematic if you don't use it well or if you don't secure it well. So what are threats? So anything or any event that can be a potential harm to an organization in any form. Similarly, vulnerabilities are the weakness in the system which exists and which needs to be remediated, or they'll be exploited. Like, I know there is a vulnerability that exists in my phone. My phone needs an update, and I am not updating it. So there is a vulnerability in my phone, and anyone can actually misuse that. Then come hacking strategies. Now, why do people or what kind of strategies people use? So these are some of the ones. Started with keylogger, phishing, bait and switch, and whatnot. Let's talk in depth about that. So with keylogger, there's an important aspect. Like, I never forget this. I remember joining cybersecurity way back when I was starting my career, and then I joined an ethical hacking training. So the lab was set up, everything was done. Even now, I have a lab, and we can do anything and everything. But now this person comes in, start teaching us, and tell us that can you just access your Gmail account from this laptop? And we were like, okay, we were new and we started accessing a Gmail account. They said log out. We logged out. We were five in the batch. Now suddenly this person says, is this your username and password? We were all stunned, like eyes wide open. What happened? So this person told us that this is a keylogger, and that time it used to be a hardware keylogger. And then this person said, you can get it from SP Road. And I'm like, okay. Then that's when I got to know about that there is an SP Road where you can get so many things, and you can start using it. And I was like, okay, how did this person use? So keylogger is nothing but, if it's installed in your system, it can be a software, it can be a hardware. But because earlier we used to have workstations, so it could be attached to a workstation. Now anything that you type, it will be logged and it will be sent to a server. You wouldn't even know. And that person actually showed us the software keyloggers as well, and that was really, really tricky, where every key of yours is being monitored. Now comes phishing. I'm sure a lot of you would be knowing, and people are talking about phishing, wherein people trick you, or malicious actors trick you in providing your passwords, your account details, credit card details, your wallet IDs, and whatnot. There was OLX scam, I remember recently. Actually, somebody tried to do it with us also. So, wherein they send you some QR code, or they send you some link, and then you click on it, type your PIN, and then the money, instead of you getting it, it gets into their account. So phishing is very tricky, and we have to be very, very attentive in uh, how whom which or link we are clicking, which email we are reading. And especially with emails, we have to be very, very attentive, like who is sending us email. If we don't know the person, why do we need to open the email? Even if we are opening it, why are we opening the links, opening the attachments? They can be spooky too. Then comes clickjacking, wherein the attacker hijack the clicks of the person. Like, some anything that you're clicking, your mouse clicks, that's being done by somebody else. You go to a website and somebody else is clicking those links, and then something gets downloaded on your system. How scary that would be. So clickjacking is something which is hidden, And I've seen with a lot of cases people are getting lured to that. There is a backdoor that gets installed on your system, and somebody gets into your account or your systems, your pictures, or anything. Now, session hijacking. This is like one important aspect. One testing I was doing, and then I was able to manipulate the session for that website and what not I could do with that. So I am speaking with Akash, and there is a session that's get maintained, or I am logged into Twitter or Facebook or any website. There is a session that's get maintained, and it's on HTTPS. Um, but HTTPS allows the encryption. So it's on secure channel. So it does not let any malicious person to sniff what I am doing. That's why people are moving towards HTTPS. But if a website is not on HTTPS, now how would you see HTTPS? When you open a browser, go to the URL tab, you will see that every website has a lock symbol in front of it. Or you just click on the URL, it changes to HTTPS. If it's on HTTP, then anyone in the world can come in between and listen to your conversation, what you're sending, anything and everything, like even your passwords. So if I am into your Wi-Fi network, I could actually sniff what you're doing. So be very cautious of it. If there is a HTTP website, don't do any transactions on that. Then comes eavesdropping. It's more of a real-time interception of the information, and the hackers just monitor what exactly, or malicious person just monitors what you're trying to do. Like if I get into your network, I'll keep listening to what you're doing rather than manipulating things. And similarly, bait and switch is something which comes in the form of advertising, where people buy advertising space on a website, and then they put some links on the website with the pictures, and as soon as you click on those links or pictures, there's something that gets downloaded from the malicious person server, and after that your system is infected. I'll tell you a funny thing, wherein I was scrolling through some websites and I infected my own system, and it took me good some time to clean that. Like it took me 2 days. I edited registries and whatnot, and I had to go through and understand what kind of malware it is or adware it is, because that was so creepy. My all browsers were showing me all the like spooky ads and whatnot. um this is very interesting. Fake Wi-Fi, like even if you try it, it's super easy to do it. Similarly, malicious people do it at the airports or any open spaces, where they'll say that okay, they'll create a hotspot with their account, and then they start naming it as the account which can be there or which can be publicly seen, and people start using it. Anything that you'll be doing, they can sniff it. So be very cautious, especially on airports or the coffee shops where you use public Wi-Fi. If you want to use any confidential details, make sure you're using VPN. Now, water hole attacks are something wherein there is a malware, and the malware just sits, doesn't do anything, just keep checking that who's coming, who's going, and at the right time it hits the nail and gets all the details. There are so many different malware forms, wherein logic bomb, it's just keep on bombarding it. Then there are backdoors which get into your computer and listens to you and then stays there forever, or I would say for years. And there was a Sony hack I remember, where backdoors were installed and they were there for a longer period. Now, to quote specifically, I am quoting all these examples because they are publicly available. Those are publicly available hacks. I am not quoting my words in any of the hacks that I am mentioning. Similarly, spywares are used, wherein spywares get into your computer and then just stay there. Now, when we talk about top 10 like hacks, especially around cloud computing, or top 11, I would say, it starts with data breaches, misconfigurations, lack of security architecture knowledge. Remember one thing, that the most annoying thing with any technology that you would be working on is that if you don't know it well, there will be issues that will occur. So if you are understanding cloud, make sure you understand that what it does, because if you know it well, then only you can break it, or else somebody else will come and break it for you, and then you'll be like, oh, I knew it, but then how come this happened? So that's when we are championing something, we have to be very, very sure of that, that this is what we are doing. Similarly, the APIs are something which are becoming more and more adopting, and then microservices are being used, and every I would say organization, every website is using APIs, or every service is using APIs. So API security is equally important. And then we control plane, where we are not managing the data right, and we are not understanding what our surface is, what our attack surface is, or protect surfaces. When we don't know our protect surface, we will lose our control plane. Then not knowing what are the services we are using, not knowing our own environment, these are something. And then insider threats actually pose a lot of risk, wherein if there is a disgruntled employee, they might create some issues, or there is an employee whose credentials get lost, or got breached, and their system is infected, and that's actually spreading the whole thing around. And they might be cloud administrator, or they might be an administrator. What will you do then? Risk management. This is one interesting topic, wherein which actually is relevant. I think it was relevant in the beginning, it's still relevant, and it will always be relevant. Because uh, if we don't know what we are protecting, if we don't categorize our own assets, if we don't understand our own assets, like for example, Akash and I have so many Gmail accounts or different mail servers. I have my own Google Workspace as well. If I don't manage it well, and if I don't know which ones I was using for what, or I might forget that, okay, this one I was using long back, I am creating a risk for myself, that, okay, I don't remember the password. This might be the password, that might be the password, and somebody else gets the password. So that can be scary. Similarly, for an organization, it's very, very important to understand their assets and act upon and categorize them. It's very, very important that this is confidential, this is publicly available, this is something which is restricted and should not be for anyone else. Now, first, we need to identify that what our assets are, what is the data, and that's where control plane comes into picture. Like we understand everything, we categorize into small chunks, and we prioritize them, then we protect them. Then, if there's something that happens to our organization, we detect and respond to it on time. It's not like postmortem we are doing afterwards. We have to be proactive in that, and that's when the real time analytics comes into picture, AI, ML, all those analytics coming into picture, and people are talking, okay, now this is these are our assets, we are monitoring them, we are taking the inputs from them, and we are logging it, and then we are running the analytics on this data. If something happens to our organization, or our data or something, how fast we can recover back from it, that's very, very important. Like in pandemic, we saw that there were so many organizations which actually shut their doors, but then how soon you can get back on your feet, how soon you can get back your services if a breach happens. There are so many things associated with it. When we talk about identify, we do the risk assessment, we do the business environment analysis, we check the governance, we do the asset management, because a lot of organizations still don't have a right kind of asset management, and that's a big concern. Like they don't have an asset inventory properly built. There are new assets which are coming in, there are old assets which are there, and nobody has an idea about it. And if you don't know it, how would you protect it? So while protection comes into picture, protecting the processes, procedures, maintaining them, giving the right kind of awareness and training to the people, and also data security comes into picture, that who's accessing what at what time, when, where, how. And if there is a problem, detect it and then respond to it accordingly. Mostly it will be an insider threat that will be creating a cost. And if that's the case, recover it as soon as possible. You need to change the settings, you need to change the servers, stop the servers, do anything and everything to do that as early as possible. And that's when you need to have a risk assessment plan built, DR plan built, which is disaster recovery plan built, if something of that sort happens. And identity theft are something which is like uh, creating a lot of issues. And the places which are not so good, where people are selling information about credentials and whatnot, credit card, driving license and whatnot, they might have all your details, they might be sniffing it. So be very cautious of what you post online and what you share online. Do you, especially for Indians, do we want to share our Aadhaar with anyone and everyone? No, I don't want to share it. Similarly for PAN, similarly for passport, or for anything that belongs to me, I don't want to share it with anyone. Anyone can spoof the identity. Similarly for passwords, that why would you share your credentials? Why would you share your identity? Your credentials are your identity. If you are on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or anywhere, if you give your credentials to anyone, they can use it. And that's the basis of like, somebody is using your identity, even though you have given your password to somebody. Then comes identity and access management. This is a very very important aspect, which is which actually have started getting important now. People used to think, no, it's very simple, identity management is something which anyone can do. But trust me, this is one area, if not done right, it can be a big or serious concern for anyone or any organization. Like, people have started talking about zero trust lately, where they start talking about that the four walls are not the perimeter anymore, but the identities, where organization are giving access to the employees, the contractors, or any or the CISOs or CIOs. So authentication becomes important, password management, token management. And that's when federation comes into picture, or single sign-on using SAML or auth comes into picture, where you're using multiple applications and you're using the same credentials. And um, lately I've started looking at the CIM, which is consumer identity and access management, which is especially for users like us, or for users who use the shopping or all those things regularly. Even for I would say for everyone, but especially for the experience that we want to get. So social login, you like, why do what I want to create another account on any website? I will use my Gmail account, I will use my LinkedIn account, Facebook account, Twitter account, or any thing that I have, or GitHub account. And now when I am managing all the access is getting managed, then identity needs to be managed. Like, if I am not an admin, why am I supposed to be an admin on some place? Like, I'm a developer, and then do I need to have access to the production account? No. So role management is equally important. Identity, intelligence gathering, uh, who has access to what. If a person is moving to a different account, whether we have removed their access or not. This happened to us, wherein a person from network team came into our team. So he was managing the firewalls, all the firewall rules. Now that person moved to security team, and then there was some firewall issue that we were facing, and we were telling him that anyone who can help us. That person said, I can help, I'll change the firewall rule. And okay, that person suddenly did it. First of all, there has to be a change management process. Second, the person who's part of the network team is not supposed to manage security. Similarly, if a person has moved from network team to security, are they supposed to manage firewall? No. Now they are supposed to manage the firewall logs. Still they have access to what they are not supposed to have access now. There can be a big security concern. Then managing the whole directory of the users, understanding who the users are and how many users do we have. That's very very important.